So the Ecuadorian government has cut Julian Assange's internet because he is questioning whether or not the Russians were responsible for the poisoning of that ex-Russian spy and his daughter. And he said very moderate, measured things in his tweet. He didn't go out and accuse the government of conspiracy or anything of the sorts, but that still got him banned. So he said the manner and the timing of Russian diplomatic expulsions is poor diplomacy. The expulsions occurred 12 hours after one of the worst building fires in post-Soviet history, which killed at least 64. Russians will see the timing as gratuitous. The 21 U.S. allies have expelled diplomats over an unresolved event in the UK, and the U.S. expelled nearly 3 times as many diplomats as the UK. The alleged victim country helps the Kremlin further the narrative that it is under conspiratorial siege led by the U.S. So this does seem to be the case, right? Further, while it is responsible for Theresa May to view the Russian state as the leading suspect, so far the evidence is circumstantial, and the OCPW has not yet made any independent confirmation, permitting the Kremlin push the view domestically that Russia is persecuted. So it does play into the Russian government's hands over their own people to allow them to increase military spending in their own government, to be, more spending military, all that shit, because then they can say, oh, America's after us, they're coming after us, you need to go kind of hungry for a little while so we can fund this huge military, right? And the American government is pushing into the propaganda to their own people, saying like, the Russians are after us. They're trying to sway elections. They're trying to do this. We need to put tough sanctions on them. We need to restart the Cold War. And Julian Assange gets censored just because he made a very measured, logical response. But they can't have that. They can't have just common sense being interjected into the narrative, because then they won't be able to go to war. Right? So what the UK Foreign Office Minister Alan Duncan responded to his comments by branding the Australian a miserable little worm who needs to turn himself into authorities. So this guy's clearly a neocon, and he's just like, fuck Julian Assange for coming in and saying we shouldn't go after Russia, because without doing that, how am I going to get money for the military to go here, do this, to kill people? And I hear a lot of people, in America and stuff, and they're talking about gun rights and how the Second Amendment was being misinterpreted, this and that. But what nobody is speaking about is the fact that America has a standing army. So that is something that the forefathers in America really did not want. They did not want a standing army. They wanted a militia-type army. They wanted individual citizens to have weapons at all times so they could form militias when necessary. They never wanted a standing army. So everybody's like, oh, only the army should have weapons. There shouldn't even necessarily be a standing army, because you see what it creates. People seem like, okay, we need one. But realistically, the standing army is what has created a lot of the problems today. What has created the immigration crisis? Why is a lot of people from countries like Iraq, Somalia, this and that, why are they trying to come into the West? It's because of invasions from America, from the UK, from other countries going in, bombing the fucking shit out of Syria, Iraq, all of these other countries, destroying their homes. So where else are they going to go? They're going to come into your country. So this is directly correlated to the standing army. So people can bitch and moan about gun rights, but nobody's talking about that. And this is what you get. You get all these governments, all these people now trying to go after Russia, trying to start a fucking conflict with them, trying to start like another third world war where they're going to put a bunch of you, the poor people, they're going to round them up and get them to fight Russia. They're not going to put their kids on the front lines. They know shit's going to go down, but they don't care because they have their bunkers. They can be safe. It's totally fine for them. They're just going to put all the dumb, poor people in the front lines to get butchered. So that is what they are leading you into. There is no evidence that the Russians even did that. I'm pretty sure there's more evidence that the chemicals were made in like China or like in the UK. Like they're going off of nothing and they're acting immediately. And anybody who disagrees are like, oh, you're a Russian puppet. You just love Russia. And this is crazy. Like this is like McCarthyism back in the day. But back in the day, there was more reason to be afraid of them because they actually were. And they're like, oh, you're crazy. But now they're acting like they're everywhere and they're infiltrating everything. We need to stop them because they're influencing our democracies in Russia. They're in Canada now, in Europe, and all these different elections are all getting blamed on Russia and them influencing. And it's just to build the narrative that these people are evil, trying to otherize them so then we can go in and take their shit. And this is pretty much the goal of America and stuff, because the only people propping up Syria, Iran, a lot of these other countries in the Middle East that America, Israel, and all these countries are trying to overtake is Russia. Russia's not a good person, a great leader. They treat their people like shit. There's packs of roaming dogs killing people in Russia. Like, if there's packs of roaming dogs in your country, that's not good. But they are stopping Assad from being completely overtaken and then looking like Libya, where there's now a slave trade going on. Because of whom? Obama and Hillary Clinton. Like, that is on their hands. And now you have all these people coming in to Europe, into Canada. And this is directly because of the standing army. Because once these things get created, they grow and they grow and they grow. And this is what the government does. This is what the government is. It's like a cancer. And without some ways to restrict it, it will continuously grow and grow. Every institution that they have gets bigger and bigger and more inefficient. Any institution the government has control over, you can look at each and every one. It grows, it gets bigger, and it gets less efficient. And over time, it's going to die out. You know, it's like the human body. If you're burning more calories than you're taking in, over time, you're gonna die. You're gonna live. You're gonna sustain yourself for a while. You're gonna pedal on and shit. Maybe come across some good stashes of food every once in a while, but you're not taking in enough calories to sustain your body, and eventually you will starve. And this is what the government, this is what the societies we have created will do eventually. Like, it's the mix of socialism and capitalism. We have our people make a lot of money through the capitalist system. Then the government comes in, takes all that money, distributes it unevenly, gives it to these people, gives it to different groups, which creates more divisiveness, more racism amongst each other, because we're looking like, oh, why does they get this much? Well, I worked this hard, I should get that much. So this is all it creates over time. There's more fighting amongst each other that our politicians could then use to be like, oh, okay, well, give us your vote and we'll oppress that group for you. This is just the nature of humanity. The best thing that we could do is get as much out of each other's lives as possible and remove the apparatus of the state that helps groups who are naturally tribalistic, because we all are, gain hold of the government to oppress other groups. And it's because we have this tool of government that this will always happen, will always replicate. But if people were just more left to their own devices, we weren't tied into each other more as much, we could get along a lot better. Doesn't mean we can't collectivize in some sense and can't come together as a community and do things together. It's like people think like, oh, because you're an individualist, you want to go live in the woods by yourself and not rely on anybody. It's like, no, you're being autistic about this. You can still be an individualist and still be a part of a group and a collective, right, at the same time. But it's when you introduce the government and you introduce the aspect of force and theft with taxes and stuff is when things start to degrade over time, and where you do start to see more tensions, right? Like, you see people did get along better, I think, when the government was less intrusive in our lives, and the more intrusive it gets, the less the less we're going to get along. And this is also because, the state comes in and supports you, and you do not need to rely as much on your family. So all this actually destroys families even more, because now you can be like, oh, whatever, I can just go on welfare. I don't need my mom to take care of me. I don't need my dad to rely on, because the government will do it. So why do I need to build strong relations with these people? It incentivizes the opposite. So without these things, it seems scary at first, but this would actually strengthen relationships within communities, within families, and you would feel more safe to let your kids out and go play, because you would know the people in your fucking community, right? So this is just the state trying to grow, right? Trying to sustain itself. This is the like I said, the standing army, just always trying to start conflicts that do not need to be started, so they can keep expanding, so they can sustain themselves. And it's not necessarily like everybody in the group is nefarious, and this is just the way these organisms tend to function. I'm not saying everybody within it has a nefarious purpose, but it's just the way that humans react within this system. So this is always going to happen as long as we have the systems that we have, and this is leading towards a World War III. Like, this is what it appears like to me anyways, and I don't want that to happen, because a lot of people would probably die, and the fact that we have nuclear weapons nowadays makes it a lot fucking worse for everybody. So we need to really cool it on this, and we got to understand that as long as we do have this type of standing army in every country, we will always have these problems. We will always have it. And like I said before, they are responsible for the immigration crisis. They are responsible for all this shit. So without that, we would have all been a lot better. There would be a lot less resentment for people of Western countries, because we kind of just sit by idly and let our governments just destroy other countries a lot of the times. And we do. It's like, I'm not saying like there's other countries, they have a part to play in their own destruction of their country, of course. But we can't be blind to what we are doing as well. And it's coming back on us through immigration, through mass immigration, through flooding of people. So we got to wake up to this fact. And we cannot start a fucking third world war with Russia, because that's going to decimate the fucking planet. But that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.